this is Stephanie Ortega, and you're listening to the Remix Movement Podcast.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to episode number 66 of the Remix Movement Podcast. This is Stephanie, and I'm here with...
I'm Lewis.
Yeah, we're back at it again. I hope you enjoyed your Labor Day weekend. I hope it was something that you guys could relax and enjoy. I know a lot of people were at the parks and Universal in Orlando. And yeah, it was crazy. But Lewis, did you have a good weekend?
Yeah, mine was pretty fine.
Yeah. All right. So in our last episode, we talked about the waiting room and how a lot happens while you're in the waiting. We talked about how sometimes it's not fun to wait, but it is necessary. And we talked about how waiting is a process in which God is still working on your behalf behind the scenes. And it was such a good topic to just be able to express myself and express a little bit of what, Lewis and I are going through, what I'm going through. I may be in the waiting room, but I know that God is with me. And the last episode's challenge was to write down 3 things that you're waiting on God for this year. And then write down the things that you can do as you're waiting to improve your relationship with God. So I gave the example that if you're waiting for a job because you lost your job during this pandemic, that would be what you would be writing about what you're waiting on. And then right next to it, you would put that every time you submit a job application, you would pray a prayer of victory and you would give God thanks for the fact that you are on your way to getting that job. So thank you for, going ahead and doing that challenge. I hope it's helped you out. And I'm praying for every single one of you guys. All right. So this is an exciting episode, right, Lewis? We're doing our 3rd installment of our mini segment, Dating with Purpose.
Yeah, today should be a really good one.
Yes. So we did go ahead and tell our listeners the title is, are you ready to get over your ex? I know a lot of people are listening to that and we're just like,
It's a great question.
Yeah. Are you ready to get over your ex? So if you are new to this episode, to this podcast, Dating with Purpose is basically a segment where we take one of our listeners' questions on dating, and they went ahead and sent us a DM either on Facebook or on Instagram, and we provide first our advice on a personal standpoint. And then secondly, we provide a biblical standpoint to the question. All right. So in this episode, the question that we received was on Instagram by one of our listeners. And the question submitted was, I just got out of a long relationship and I see my ex is already over me according to his recent Instagram posts. Is it wrong to say yes to other guys who have asked me out just so that I can get over my ex? So, Lewis, I'll let you start.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And in my opinion, I think this all depends on your level of maturity. I think that will weigh heavily on how you answer that very question. And if you're obviously asking this question, it's because you're pretty much trying to make a move, right? You're either trying to move forward and go ahead and get back into the, sit on the saddle, or you're going to take a break and work on you and, do that. So, great question. I think it's a great time when you are in that moment of by yourself, that you can find a lot of answers and a lot of questions, and take that time just for you. So, is it okay? Yes. Yes, it's okay, in my opinion. But that's just my opinion.
Okay. All right. I was laughing because you said sit on the saddle.
Oh, yeah. Like
I've never heard that expression.
Like
ever.
Jump on the horse, like get it going.
I've never.
No?
I thought you were gonna refrain it and be like, okay, you're ready to get back in the game, because I've heard that.
You never heard of Jump on the Horse?
I've never. I've never heard of jump on the horse. Maybe it's because you were born in the 80s and I was born in the 90s. I've never heard that.
Highly doubt that has anything to do with it, but
maybe our listeners have heard that before.
I don't think it's a generational thing, but the fact that you haven't heard it, that's something else. But
I don't know.
To blame it on the 80s or 90s.
I don't know. Like, sit on the saddle. Just reminds me of like a cowboy movie.
So there's no movies that came out in the 90s?
I don't know.
The Cowboys?
I didn't watch it. I don't know. But you said it was okay. You said if, hey, if your ex is already out there, if your ex is already moving past you, why not?
Yeah, honestly, it's one of those questions that only you can answer.
Mm-hmm. I get you.
It can go either way.
Yeah. All right. Well, for me, I have kind of like a similar answer, but just a little bit different. Obviously, women have a different perspective than men, but it's always good to hear a guy's perspective on these things, which is why it's really cool to do these dating with purpose segments. I would say don't feel the pressure of having to rush into dating again. I think it's common for when you break up with somebody in a relationship for you to look back. I think it's very common for us to ask ourselves all these questions like, well, why didn't it work out? And, oh, well, what did I do wrong that it didn't work? Or could I have done better? And because we ask ourselves those questions when we get out of a relationship, we don't take the time to process heartbreak. And especially if, like, this person said it was a long relationship. You probably knew this person for like a year, 2 years, maybe more. I don't know. But you really shouldn't have to feel the need to look at their Instagram. I know it's not easy. I will tell you, in the past, it wasn't Instagram for me, but it was maybe like Facebook. I would look back and see, like, is he moving on because I haven't yet? And I feel like you shouldn't go on your next date out of pity. I don't think that'll help you out at all. And I say that out of experience because, back in high school, you break up with your boyfriends, your girlfriends, whatever, and then you go out with the next person and you're not over the one you just broke up with. And I feel like when you're not over with the one you just broke up with, even though you did, you kind of string along all the things that are unanswered, that were problematic into the next one. And it's really just you trying to get over them. And like, you need to give yourself some time to heal. You need to give yourself some time to date other people and go into maybe something not so serious. Like, maybe you need some time to be single, to work on your passions, to work on your desires. But I definitely don't think that you should feel pressured into getting back on that saddle and getting on to another one. I feel like, you really need time to just process the fact that you gave this person your time, you gave this person your feelings, you gave this person everything that you thought it was going to be, and it didn't work out. So now you just need to give yourself time to really, ask God, why didn't it work out? And just be okay with maybe being single for a little bit until you are ready to go on to the next person. In our last episode 65, we talked to Christine Navarro, one of me and Lewis's friends. And, when she talked about singleness, she talked about her own experiences. She talked about how, like, being single is not a bad thing. Being single is the time where you get to focus on yourself. You get to be able to do the things you like without feeling the added pressures of society, the added pressures of a past relationship, the added pressures of your family members telling you, hey, it's time, you got to move forward, right? And if you didn't get a chance to listen to it, I definitely encourage you to go ahead and do that. And I'm sorry, I said 65 when it was really episode 64. It was episode 64, Savoring Singleness. It was our 7th remix interview, and it was with Christine Navarro. So singleness is a gift, and even though you did go through a breakup with somebody that you really cared about, again, from a female perspective, from my perspective, I think that you should definitely give yourself time to kind of focus on yourself, okay? And, one of the best now moving into biblical advice, okay? One of the best chapters that talks about time, that talks about process, that talks about, when you should and shouldn't do things is going to be found in Ecclesiastes chapter 3. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to read the whole thing. I kind of picked in a few verses and I want to read it out. I'm going to be reading verses 1 through 4, 7 through 8, and then 11 through 12, okay? And I'm going to read them out all in order, but it's basically titled A Time for Everything, okay? And we're talking about, like, are you ready to go over your ex? It's a lot to do with your emotions, and it's a lot to do with, like, the time of what you're going through. So that's why I'm reading this verse. That's why we're referencing this particular Bible scripture, okay? So it says, for everything there is a season, a time for every activity under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to harvest, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to tear down and a time to build up, a time to cry and a time to laugh, a time to grieve and a time to dance. Verse 7, a time to tear and a time to mend, a time to be quiet and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for hate. Verse 11, yet God has made everything beautiful for its own time. He has planted eternity in the human heart, but even so, people cannot see the whole scope of God's work from beginning to end. And last, verse 12, so I conclude there is nothing better than to be happy and enjoy ourselves as long as we can. So, Lewis, after listening to that and after, revisiting the question that our listeners submitted, like, how can you give your feedback with regards to just the idea of giving yourself time after breaking up with somebody in a long relationship and getting into the next relationship?
I think it's just, feeling comfortable.
Yeah.
About, your situation. Taking the time to recognize, whatever you went through.
Mm-hmm.
And really just, taking that time. Take some time. Just, take it all in, examine it. And I don't know. I almost feel like people are racing against time.
Yeah.
And, sometimes, you feel like you need to rush into things, or maybe you feel like, you don't have enough time. So, you jump the gun.
Mm-hmm.
But really there's, just like that Bible verse says, there's a time for everything, right? And you can definitely take advantage of it. You can definitely learn from it and, enjoy it.
Exactly. And I feel like that's important, right? Because you get out of one relationship and it comes with a lot of baggage that was left unopened. And maybe you think like, okay, well, I should have done this, and I could have done this, and I could have done better. And then you look at the other person that you used to be in that relationship and you compare yourself. And what you really should be doing is saying, okay, it didn't work out with that person. I cared for that person. Maybe I love that person, but now I need to move forward. Now I need to take the time to go back to me and do kind of like a heart check, right? How do I fall right now with my relationship goals? Do I want to continue to date the kind of person I was dating before? How do I fall with regards to my relationship with God? Did God help me in this relationship, or did this person take me farther away from my relationship with God? And then just taking the time to, like you said, not feel the need to have to compete with others, not feel the need to jump the gun and race the time, because there is a time for everything, and every time will be different. So maybe it's not a time span of a year or 2 years. Maybe your time is maybe a couple months, and only you can tell when your time is ready to move on, right? Only you can tell when you're ready to put your feelings out into a new relationship. Because when you start a new relationship with somebody, you kind of start it all over again, right? You got to revisit a few things you like. You got to ask them the same questions. Where are you from? What do you like? And what do you think about this? And you have to start the process again. And sometimes that can bring up a lot of hostility in you. It could bring a lot of sadness in you. But you need to take the time to really focus on what your needs are and what your desires are. And like I said, it's okay to give yourself the time that you need to stay single before you date again. All right. And one of the last things I want to go ahead and mention is that you can't move forward if you're always looking back. Do you agree with that, Luis?
I do. That's a great point.
Right? I can't expect to gain knowledge about a certain topic if I am still thinking about, well, it didn't work for me in the past. Why is it going to work for me again? I can't move forward in my choices if I'm still thinking about, okay, well, I did this before. So one of the best things I can think about when it comes to Bible scripture is kind of taking the situation that happened between Lot and his wife. And if you want to go ahead and check out this story or what happened to her, it's in Genesis 19. And basically what happened was that God told Lot and his wife and his kids, his daughters, to go ahead and leave the city that they were living in and to go to a different city. He basically said, pack up all your stuff. I'm moving you to a different land and I'm moving you into a new territory. He gave him a plan. He told him what to do. And then he said, listen, while you're moving forward, don't look back. Because again, God's whole picture for us, just like it says in that verse 11 and 12, is that we can never know what the full picture of God is. We always aspire to know what he has for us, but sometimes you have to go through life to be able to hit certain trials and tribulations, tests, experiences, and things so that you can be able to move into the territory that God has for you. So in this story, while they're moving forward, for some reason or another, the Bible doesn't say it, but Lot's wife looks back. And she looks back at the city that she's leaving. And it says, as she's looking back, she turned into a pillar of salt. All right. And she turned into a pillar of salt. There was nothing Lot and his daughters could do but just keep moving forward. And what does that say about, what does that give in regards to advice of what the word says? Whenever it is that you're moving into a relationship, you're moving into a new house, you're moving into a new career, you're moving into a new blessing, you have to make sure that you're moving forward and you're not looking back. Okay, you need to understand that even though you may have had some really good times with your ex, even though you may have had some really special moments, there's going to be even better moments moving forward. There's going to be even bigger blessings moving forward. Even though you had your time in the past where you learned new things about yourself, you're going to be more victorious and more successful in the future moving forward with God. Okay, so that's basically the last thing I want to say with regards to this question, unless you want to add anything, Luis.
No, that was good. Like, that story is so powerful because, she looked back, turned into salt, but she ended up missing her future completely.
She did.
Her destiny was done with when she looked back. And those are the kinds of things that can happen when you decide to do that, when you decide to ponder on the past.
Yeah.
It's not that you have to forget everything. Mm-hmm. It's that you hinder yourself from moving forward.
And that's what you need to do in life. You can't constantly be looking back at every ex you have, right? You can't be looking back. Imagine if Luis and I are in a marriage and I looked back and said, well, my ex didn't say that and my ex didn't treat me this way. It would just ruin our relationship because you're bringing old moments into a new territory.
Right. I've seen this on like TV, where these two people, they, meet for a date or whatever. And they always bring up the ex in that situation. And it always, in TV, it turns out awkward, right?
Yeah.
Because you really don't want to hear about that person's,
past
relationships.
Yeah.
Especially when you're trying to start a new
relationship. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, just keep moving forward and do it in your time.
Exactly.
Do it in a place where you are ready to move forward. And if it takes time, then let it be. And if it takes time, enjoy that time. Make it your own, make it with God.
Yeah.
And then move forward. When you feel stable and mature enough to go into that next move.
Exactly. And do not feel pressure from anybody. I'm telling you, nobody needs to tell you how you should handle your ex. Nobody needs to tell you how you should handle your next relationship. Nobody needs to be in your personal life. Everything that we're talking about right now is all about you and how you are with your relationship with God and how you are with how you feel. And you should not have to compare yourself to anybody else, because not everybody's relationship advice is going to apply to you. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope that this was one that you can pick up the biblical scriptures and it will help you. For our listeners out there, the challenge for this episode is if you can relate to this person's question, because it's something that you're dealing with, something that you've been thinking about, please consider the biblical advice, the verses that we read in Ecclesiastes chapter 3, and the story of Lot in Genesis 12. Ask God to give you clarity and give you peace if for whatever decision that you need to go through. If this is, you agree with what the Bible says, you agree with what's going on with our advice, then just continue to pray for our family members and our friends that may be dealing with this particular question, all right? If you have any dating questions that you would like to listen to and you would like for us to answer, please go ahead and send us a DM on Facebook or Instagram at The Remix Movement. And we'll go ahead and we'll keep doing segments like this that have to do with dating questions, dating with purpose. And, and we're here for you guys. We're always praying for you guys. And we hope and pray that God will bring you into the next relationship with a clear mind and with nothing but happiness and clarity. All right. So thank you so much for tuning in.
Thank you.
God bless.
Bye.
If you enjoyed listening to this podcast, follow us on Facebook and Instagram at The Remix Movement for more updates. Send us a DM with your feedback, questions, and any topics that you would like to hear in any of our future episodes. Thank you and God bless.